Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm wearing this Madonna micro. It's very fabulous on this confetti stage. So I'm Alex Verhaest, and I will be presenting my work today. I'll first show you a bit of my older work to give you some context of what I actually make. And then I'll show you how my late extra masters at Le Fresnoy actually completely changed my practice. And subsequently, I will talk about my latest project ad hominem, which is a choose your own adventure game. And then I'll show you a sneak peek, very exclusive, of what I am working on. So I'll start with a little introduction of my oldest work, Temps Mort. I will let you watch a little teaser. C'est moi.
Who's that? Who's that?
Phone.
Not me. I'm right here. That's right.
Yes, we're right here. What am I doing here?
So voila, I'm still very proud that Temps Mort won a Japanese Media Arts Festival, New Face Award, and a Golden Nica at Ars Electronica. That was pretty cool. So Temps Mort is a video installation consisting of 13 distinct works, of which 10 non-responsive and 3 interactive. So, and as you have seen in the video, the main piece, the dinner scene, is actually activated by a call from the spectator. When the spectator calls the number he or she receives upon entering the gallery, the phone on the table and the work rings, and one of the people seated at the table kind of silences the phone, and then a conversation ensues. So here are some images of Temps Mort and how it was shown in an exhibition space. I particularly like this exhibition space because it was quite of a spooky house, which sort of fitted the theme of the whole work very much. And it kind of sparked in me the idea that this is actually the way I would like to work. I would like to present cinema more as an experience to walk through than as a thing to watch on a screen. So voilà. So Temps Mort addresses, like all of my artwork, actually the perverse paradox of the impossibility of communication in the age of communication. These are the 10 non-interactive works in the series. And these are the more large video works. There are two axes in the installation. They represent what is seen and what is felt, what is said and what is kept quiet, so to speak. And this is the establishing shot of the piece. It shows a view on the city from a living room. And if you move closer to the piece, actually in the reflection of the window, there is one of the main characters that appears. Voilà, this is a view on the what is felt, so to speak. So as you can see, a lot of romantic inner turmoil, I guess. So the whole installation is actually about this. It's about the difference, what we say and what we see or present, and what we feel and don't say. It's actually the story of a family in which a father, the patriarch, commits suicide, and this introduces this axis in time where the characters have to, deal with this event somehow. So, voilà. So as I said, it speaks about the impossibility of communication that such an event introduces. And talking about the impossibility of communication at the exhibition that I just showed you the pictures of was during a theater festival in Ostend. And I had the brilliant idea at that time to have one of the characters actually send the last spectator who calls a text message. And then to have the spectator interact with this character and be able to expand on the story, so to speak. Well, this was back in, I think, 2014. And, that's no excuse because I'm still a shit programmer. And I made a chatbot to respond to all these messages. But I also, knowing my own programming skills, kind of ported all the text messages to a secondary phone, so I could actually intervene if the chatbot was too stupid. Turns out the chatbot was stupid. So it was a festival of 5 days, and it was very well visited. To my surprise, I had about 1 call per 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes, somebody entered into a conversation of, on average, 3 text messages. So this resulted in very good childhood memories. I was just, my thumbs were absolutely sore. I'm guessing this is a room half full of nerds, so people have probably also played Nintendo, right? Yeah, safe to say. So, me too. I spent a lot of Wednesday afternoons in the rainy Belgium of the 90s. I mean, wrong to say, but thank God for climate change on that front. It's a horrible, horrible joke, I know. So I spent a lot of Wednesday afternoons just playing the Nintendo, because I was bored. I will expand on this later, because I actually ended up making a video game with my terrific programming skills, but whatever. So in 2018, I did a second master's in, I think they actually dub it as experimental film at Le Fresnoy. Do you guys know Le Fresnoy as an institute? Yeah, you do. That's the only person who knows Le Fresnoy. Okay, more people. So it's a school in Tourcoing, and they attract mainly people who are maybe a bit older. It's like the Rijksacademie of Film, but then in France. And they promote either you to make installations that are very video-based, or to make classical films. And there, during 2 years, my tutor was Bellatar, so you can imagine how classical the films were that he wanted me to make. So I made 2. Jour des Crêpes and Nesting. To be honest, Jour des Crêpes was absolutely terrible. I mean, the first time you make a film, you really have no idea what you're doing. You can have seen 200 films in your life, but you still don't have a clue. The second one was okay. Let's put it that way. We did win a prize for best cinematography at Leuven Court, so that was great, but that was also thanks to my fantastic DOP. And we also got a jury prize at Brussels Film Festival, so I was very pleased with that. I will show you a little clip.
heb wat eten voor u mee.
I'm sorry, Miss Anna, but it's only an old car. I mean, it ain't nothing special.
So voilà, both Nesting and Jour des Crêpes were actually classical films in the sense that they were presented on a single screen, and they kind of went from A to Z, though not exactly. And this, I mean, I really enjoyed making them. It really informed me a lot of what you can do with sound and how you can push the boundaries of the believable of the image and the believable of sound as well. That was really nice. And it also pushed me to play a bit with camera angles, whereas as before, I would, have very classical, classically staged works of video that were more related to painting than to cinema, actually. So it was all very informative, but I still felt a bit cramped by the fact that it was just a single screen thing. There was always in the back of my mind, I could have done way more with this story if I could have just expanded on it on different screens and, preferably being a Nintendo kid, introducing some buttons. So this is during the pandemic, to be honest, during this big moment of contemplation, I actually decided that I want to keep one leg in both fields from now on. So every story that I tell, because that's actually what I do, I always tell a story as opposed to a lot of other visual art that is more related to concept or something abstract, which I enjoy as well, but I'm a storyteller. So each story I tell, I want to have one piece that travels within the cinema world. So either the interactive cinema world or just the normal cinema world. And then I want to expand on the story in different pieces that I could present in a gallery as one installation or as separate pieces as well. Which brings me a bit to my latest interactive piece, which is now going in premiere at some festivals. Unfortunately, I cannot say anything about it yet. Ad hominem. So here's a little teaser.
Eindelijk. Eindelijk. Gezeten.
In the world beyond the big city port, there are picturesque villages. Some lost in the depths of the lowlands, and some on small islands around tiny harbors where rickety boats dock after wallowing days in the direction of never-attainable horizons.
Ben je terug van de stad met nog grotere plannen?
Every so often, you get off and spend the night at one of those inns. Swaying on sea legs between a sense of familiarity and estrangement. Eyes smarting with salt.
Als je de boot wilt hebben voor de paradestart, dan ga je nu wel moeten vertrekken, hè? Ja, zeker.
Je herkent mij niet.
Someone might even recognize you.
So, as said, Ad hominem is the one interactive piece that will travel in the cinema world, start its little travel in the cinema world, hopefully, and is part of a bigger narrative world called The Archive of Unattained Future. It's a story, so to speak, presented in 2 acts, of which the first act is Ad hominem, a video game in which the spectator plays change, returning to its hometown, looking for recognition for all it has done, and coming to the conclusion that change is never really welcome. And then in the second act, the archivist, a woman, actually addresses the spectator over a 60-channel video installation, and she refers to a correspondence of travel letters in which Change wrote to her about 4 mythical utopia it visited. So, and each story is similar of the utopia, but contradicting in significant ways, but I'll expand on that later. I will show you an overview because the whole installation actually went in premiere at Barakat Contemporary. And then, as for the international premiere, Ad hominem, maybe some of you were at Ars Electronica, the last one. The work was there and we won an honorary mention, yes. Here's a little explanatory video.
Hi, my name is Alex Verhaest. I'm presenting today, or Barakat Contemporary is presenting today, the Archive of Unattained Futures, my work consisting of 2 parts. This is the first part, it's called The Archivist, and downstairs we have a video game called Ad hominem. In The Archivist, 4 utopia are presented based on the writings by Sophie Verhaest. The 4 utopia are the hub, the oasis, the bazaar, and the capsule, as defined by her in her brilliant PhD, Utopia Unbound. These 4 utopias are positioned on a matrix, having conservative and progressive thinking on one axis, and individualistic thinking and collectivist thinking on the other axis. This axis is repeated in the video game as a score system. Here upstairs, it is positioned around this monolith, where the 4 distinct utopia that are on the extremities of that axis are represented. In The Archivist, Change writes to you, the viewer, from these utopia as a time traveler, narrating the discrepancies between the 4 spaces in a poetic way.
You wrote, I'm just back from the West
The
Island.
narration is presented over images that I have found within the public domain and have composited and adjusted and have worked on and turned into videos. The text is written together with the deep learning artificial intelligence called GTP3. GTP3 is a deep learning language generator that is trained on 8 billion parameters, also from the public domain, so based on books, blog writings, and internet posts from the last century, so to speak. So it functions a little bit as a collective unconsciousness of humanity, Western humanity, of course, unfortunately. And it spits back text when you write text to it, or when you ask it questions, it spits back text, which is based or taken from these sources and reworked through the artificial intelligence to make for a sometimes coherent story. So in the video game Ad hominem is also based on the doctoral thesis of Sophie Verhaest, Utopia Unbound, and on the 4 utopias she proposes in this PhD. They are structured around the same matrix, and the matrix here functions as a score system. In the game, you are put into the role of change.
U heeft het dorp gemaakt tot wat het is. Dat zal
So you are presented with 4 characters in the game that represent the 4 extremities of these utopian thoughts. They ask you a question at the end of each sequence. You get the option to answer or to choose an answer from 2 responses, which gives you a score that fits onto the matrix again. So at the end of the game, you get either of 4 endings. And of course, it is determined whether you are conservative or progressive, whether you have an individualistic stance in life or a more conservative stance. In the game, change functions as an old revolutionary who comes back to his or her village looking for some recognition for all it has done. But as in life, change is never really welcome. There is an event held in its name though at the end of the game, so you would have to play the whole game to see how welcome or unwelcome change turns out to be.
So I'd kind of forgotten how much of a good job they'd done in Korea of making this little video. So I hope I'm not rehashing too many of the concepts right now. Please don't fall asleep. So again, the structure is based on research and writings of my good friend and just genius scholar Sophie Verhaest. So in her doctoral thesis, Sophie defined actually 4 different tropes of utopia that circulate and re-emerge in Western literature. She investigates how the concept of a good place can actually activate stereotypical patterns of imagination, which in their turn circulate in a culture as a collective, simplified framework used to understand a more complex reality. So, it's just a way of categorizing utopia, and that's the way we see what is in front of us or what is not in front of us, mainly. So they function almost as a pair of glasses through which we see our past, present, and future. So per utopia, she actually discusses 3 books. They're not necessarily the most canonized or best pieces of literature, but that's of course not the point of the whole thesis. But with each selection, she actually shows, in fact, a spectrum of representation of these 4 ideas, and there is a clear link between their respective representations. So her examples explicitly range, so to speak, from this topic to utopic. So I'll quickly show you. I can send the slides afterwards if somebody wants. I'll quickly show you the books that she refers to. Melinda and Dragoman, by the way, beautiful book. If you haven't read it, please do. It's good. Voilà. What I appreciated actually deeply about her dissertation is like how she describes in such a simple manner how these descriptions of utopia function as a reductive framework of how we see things. And this is, of course, this is a very in the West, and that's also a caveat that I want to put here, because this is terrifying. Because we build actually upon the ideas of other people, and as a feminist, intersectional feminist, I know very clearly how certain voices have not been included in the conversation and have not been built upon. But anyway, that's something to think about. So it speaks about culture as a subconscious, for better or for worse, which is terrifying and beautiful at the same time. To me, honestly, this is actually why art is religion in a certain sense. It is a conversation with voices that have long since passed, and also with voices that are yet to be born. So what we keep and canonize, collect, and transmit as a culture and as humanity on a whole is therefore incredibly important, since the biases by which we live are actually determined by this, by what we keep and transmit and therefore perpetuate. So in trying to structure Sophie's countries of the mind, I came to the conclusion that the 4 utopia she proposes in her writings can be put, as said in the video, on the extremities of this little matrix. So both axes imply, of course, a spectrum, and this might seem reductive, but like Sophie agrees that this is actually what happens in our mind. This is what we do with language. We just categorize things, right? So, idiot me, I thought, Matrix, video game. So, as I said, I grew up with a 32-bit. Are there other old people in the room here who had one of those? Right? That thing was amazing, wasn't it? So we played it again every Wednesday, rainy Wednesday, as long as we could. And when our parents said, okay, stop, that's enough now, we read these books. Does anybody know these? Like the Choose Your Own Adventure books? So for the lesser nerdy people, these are like books you can play. So it's like when you are on page 24, it says, do you want to go left or go right? If you want to go left, go to page 200. And you usually, like Dungeons and Dragons, you like start with some skills you have, which you can lose in the game or whatever. Extremely nerdy, but very, very fun. So I thought, wouldn't it be fantastic to make a video game based on the Choose Your Own Adventure books, a Choose Your Own Adventure game, a bit like Bandersnatch, but then with a more philosophical stance, so to speak. So in Ad Hominem, you play change, returning to its hometown and looking for recognition. And you are a sort of revolutionary, and people are holding this big event in your name. But in the end, no spoiler alert, actually, because it's not a spoiler at all. It becomes quite clear that you're not really welcome. So there are 4 levels in the game that correspond to the 4 utopia. So the utopia, I should pronounce it more utopia, which, defines the style figure, not necessarily whether it's utopic or dystopic. So and the 4 characters are the 4 utopia embodied, so to speak. So the world that they live in actually changes according to your answers. Do you agree with their stance? Then their environment looks more clean, more happy, more whatever. Do you disagree? Then the background behind them becomes completely dystopic. So this is the script that is behind the thing. There are 4 different endings, depending on how progressive or conservative, individualistic or collectivist your answers are. And I started out to write the whole thing using quotes from the books, but this became something that was mainly of interest to maybe literary scholars and adjacent nerds, just like me, but it became a bit too hermetic. So I started including quotes from philosophy. For example, I'll just let it run for a little bit. This is a quote from Ezra Proust, Make It New, the foundational essay of modernism.
Eindelijk! Eindelijk! Je zijt er! Het is er. Verandering. Het is er. Eindelijk. Ik ben precies de enige die staat op te wachten. Welkom. Welkom. Of moet ik zeggen, welkom terug. We hebben zoveel... Ik heb zoveel verwachting.
Words rise to the surface of your deliriously tired brain. Her language is vaguely familiar to you. Speaking it feels like a cold stone in your mouth. Not unpleasant, but not quite familiar neither. But language is not a mere artifact in a cabinet of curiosities
or a museum exhibit. It does have a definite function in all human life.
No, I'll go a little bit faster here. If you want, it's quite a slow game. If you want to play a demo, just hit me up on Instagram and I'll send you a little private link of the first level. So then in the second act that I was talking about, which was, you know, the 60-channel video installation in that cube in the video, the archivists actually change rights to an unknown woman about these 4 countries of the mind, resulting in 4 collections of videos with a narrated voiceover. And the series was, as I said, composed of images found within the public domain. So a lot of these beautiful collections are online, which is, I mean, that's just, during COVID, that was my therapy. Does anybody know the public domain review, for example? Yeah, I see a lot of nods. For you who don't, happy birthday to you. I just gave you a beautiful gift. It's a free newsletter that reviews actually something that came into the public domain either recently or was discovered by the author. And it ranges from photography to little film footage to graphic drawings to whatever. And it's immensely beautiful. The New York Public Library also has amazing collections online, and they actually, until a few years before COVID, they had a residency called Mix and something, where you could actually go there and like use the archive and make new stuff of it. So that was pretty awesome. But now it's all online, so you can just do it yourself. So I collected these images on hard drives. I started years ago, but let's say that during the pandemic, I don't know about you, but we had shithole to do. So, you know, the collection grew significantly. So I thought that one day I would actually make a project with this, and so came the day. So I thought these would be particularly pertinent since they are also a testimony of what we collect, you know, what we keep as humankind. And they are containers and producers in themselves of our countries of the mind, in that sense. So by association and sometimes by source origin, because there are some really historically scary images in there, I started grouping them actually around this matrix of the utopia. And I manipulated the original images as to repurpose them for a fictional space. Sometimes they are composed like collages out of 3 or 4 of those images. Sometimes I've integrated painted elements to pull them towards the story told. And each video functions like almost a little poem into itself. So there are 15 videos per utopia, so 60 in total. I wrote the story, as I said, in collaboration with GPT-3. Are there more people in the room who use this? So it's quite powerful. You should actually check it out. It's a generative, pre-trained transformer, an AI, to put it in shitty terms. Yeah, there is no such thing as artificial intelligence, but bon. So what GPT-3 actually does best is generate text. It's trained on 179 billion machine learning parameters, and it's mainly trained on a data set available on the web, but also, as you can see, on 67 billion books. So, of course, again, there is a lot of bias in the data set since it is limited, for one, to the Anglo-Saxon sphere. And the Anglo-Saxon sphere, as we all know, is not devoid of conspiracy theories, a little bit of sexism, some racism. I mean, it's all there, so to speak. So it is not a neutral source at all, and you can't really have it do what it wants to do. So it generates a lot of cliches, but you know, utopia, the style figures of utopia also generate a lot of cliches. To write fiction, however, it's very interesting. So it's like conversing with the subconscious of the internet. I had the impression, but that's a complete projection of, I don't know, me, that at night it would give me more interesting results. I don't know. You can ask it questions. My students actually did this and made a project out of it and got very scary answers. But you can also, what it does best is you just feed it some text and then you ask it to complete. And yeah, that renders really varying results, let's say, but sometimes good. For example, this is less good. This is in orange what GPT-3 wrote, so not very interesting and a bit sexist and problematic in a way. But sometimes, you know, it hits the spot. So in gray is what it responded a bit later in the day. So where I had actually set out for it to write the whole story, I preferred partnering up, so to speak, because you know you couldn't let it do what it wanted. So this is what it resulted in, for example.
You wrote about the idea of difference. You'd write that change is the pivotal point between things, the ungraspable that holds everything together. It is our highest virtue, because of what we sacrifice for it. You wrote me, I will have spent my life trying to understand the function of change, which is not the opposite of conservation, but rather, its heartbeat. We do not change. We rewrite memory much as history is rewritten. How can one remember a cloud?
So voila, this is one of the 60 videos in the installation. So I'm going to look at the technical crew. I see we are running out of a bit of time. Do I have time to show like a quick teaser of the last thing I'm making? Is that okay? Or do you prefer I stop now? Yeah? Okay, all good. I will skip a few slides and I will show you a little piece of my last film and video installation called Society, based on a very short story of Franz Kafka called Fellowship. Here you go. Voilà. Thank you all for your attention.